So today I'm going to talk about why storytelling really is about revealing character. The reason that readers read and the reason really that we write is because we want to develop this character and reveal who this person is.
You have a story to tell, but you don't know where to start. Let me show you how to free your story. I teach you how to write and how to dig deep in your soul to release your story and make a difference in the world.
Welcome to the Julia Monte channel. If we're just meeting, I am Julia Monte, and again today I want to talk about characterization. So it's actually probably one of my favorite topics because I do love talking about how to write characters and develop characters, because I think that there is no story without a character. And while I was thinking about that, I thought, well, is there? Can anybody write a story without a character? Are there stories without characters? And I decided, well, I'm going to put AI to use, maybe find a use for AI. And I asked ChatGPT, hey, tell me about a story that doesn't have a character. Maybe there are stories without characters and I just don't know about it. So this is what it told me. It said that there actually is one, and it's called The House of Leaves, and it's by Mark Z. Danielowski. I don't know how to pronounce his name. Anyhow, the point is, it found one. And I said, well, okay, what kind of story is this? And tell me about the story. Like, what if it's not about a character, there's no character, then what's the story? So this is how AI described it. While the book does feature some characters, the narrative is heavily focused on the exploration of space, both physical and psychological, rather than the traditional character development. House of Leaves is a complex and unconventional novel about a family who discovers that their house is larger on the inside than it is on the outside. The narrative is presented through a series of nested narratives, footnotes, and appendices, creating a fragmented and disoriented reading experience. Throughout the book, the house itself becomes a central character, with its ever-expanding interior serving as a metaphor for the psychological depths of the human mind. The story explores the themes of perception, identity, and the nature of reality, all without relying heavily on traditional character-driven plot lines. While House of Leaves does feature some characters, they are often overshadowed by the book's innovative narrative structure and thematic depth, making it a compelling example of experimental fiction that challenges traditional notions of character. Okay, so first of all, that does sound actually like an interesting book. I would probably actually enjoy reading that because it does sound interesting. It doesn't sound interesting the way that a traditional novel sounds interesting. Like I want to read a story about a character achieving a goal or doing something. It doesn't feel to me like a novel, right? Like what we're used to reading. It doesn't feel like that at all. It feels exactly like what it is, just kind of like a psychological experiment or just looking at what the human mind might be like, right? So it's interesting. I think it's pretty deep, but I don't think of it as a traditional story or novel because it doesn't have characters. But also, I want to say that it kind of does have a character, right? So first of all, the story does have characters because there is a family. So there are some people in here. But we might also even think of the house as a character itself, right? Since characters do not have to be human, that we could think of the house as a character. We could even think of the human mind in that story as being a character. So there is a character, but not in the traditional sense of a character. Like it's not going to experience growth. It's not going to experience transformation. And it's really just a story to make you think about our mind and the expansiveness of it and all of that. So again, it sounds interesting. It's actually something I would read, but it's not a traditional story because it lacks characters that we can develop and that we can have grow throughout the story. So in traditional stories, then what do we have? We have a character that is going to go through a journey, right? In this character, through the journey, is going to experience things that most of us might experience in life. And that because of these experiences, they're going to change, they're going to grow, they're going to develop into a new person really by the end of the story. They're not going to be the same at the end as they were in the beginning of the story. And so what we're doing here when we're taking this character on a journey is we're revealing the character, we're revealing who this character really is on the inside and who they're capable of becoming. This means that as an author, we need to know, well, how do characters change? How do people change? A lot of times people change not because they want to, but because they have to, right? Nobody says, well, I just want to change. Sometimes they do, right? Sometimes it's like, oh, my life really sucks, but that is kind of why they want to change. They don't really want to change. They want to change because something is not going right. Otherwise, they wouldn't want to change. Change is hard. Change takes effort, right? And change is kind of scary sometimes because you don't know. You kind of know how things are before you change, but once you change, you don't know how things are going to be. So how do we make our character change, and how do we do that? So the first thing you have to do is make sure that your character is forced to change somehow, right? So your character is going to be comfortable, even if your character is in a bad situation, a bad marriage, bad job, whatever, right? But they are what's going to make them want to change is that they can no longer live. So you're forcing them to change. They can no longer live the way that they have been living. So something terrible has to happen that's going to launch your character into this journey that's going to make them change. Maybe their spouse decides they want a divorce, or the job becomes so unbearable, they have to do something so terrible that they can't do that. So whatever it is, right, it has to be something that's forcing them to change even if they don't want to. And again, nobody really wants to change. So your character is never going to want to do the change, even if, let's say, they want to do something like losing weight. Okay, so yeah, I'm uncomfortable. I want to lose weight. I don't want to weigh however much I weigh, right? But what is causing that character to want to do that, or the person to do that? Like, why would I want to do that? Now I'm very comfortable having ice cream and having, not just sitting around and all of that. Why would I want to change? Well, because maybe my health is getting affected, or maybe I can't fit into clothes that I want to fit into, or whatever the reason, right? So it's forcing me to go ahead and eat better because I want to achieve these other goals. So whatever it is, you have to figure out, like, how are you going to force your character into the change? Okay, the second thing that you have to know about characters and people in general is that characters have beliefs. They have beliefs about themselves. They might believe that they are not strong enough, they're not good looking enough, they're not kind enough, they're not nice enough. Whatever it is that their belief is about themselves. And these beliefs they have about themselves are going to keep that character from changing. This is why your character might be afraid to try something, right? They believe they're not strong enough to do something. They're not going to want to do it. They're not going to want to change. So what are the beliefs that this character has about himself that is going to keep him from wanting to change, or make it even more difficult for this character to change? So for example, let's say that this character doesn't believe that he is strong enough or brave enough in order to do whatever he needs to do. And then all of a sudden he finds himself in a bank that gets robbed, and he is taken hostage, and he has to do something, either to save someone else or whatever. And he finds the courage to do something. All of a sudden now, you're testing him, right? You're putting him in a situation where he has to make a decision. He has to reach deep inside into that strength that he has to have in your story to eventually accomplish his goal, right? And do something, right? Tackle somebody or protect someone or something. So he finds that inner strength. And that's going to start to change his belief about himself. So if he has a sort of entrenched belief that he is not strong enough or he's not brave enough, this smaller event, which is not so small, but it's kind of a smaller event compared to the journey that you're going to take him on, is going to force him to see that, oh, well, maybe I can change this belief about myself. Maybe I'm not as, I'm frightened, but I can also do things, right? So you're going to create these tests that are going to change your character's belief about himself. So these two things, right? So making sure that you are forcing your character in some way to go on this journey, to make the change that he needs to make. And second, making sure that you're changing your character's beliefs about himself in smaller tests in order to be able to make the big change later, right? So you start with those two things. Now, your story's purpose is to reveal this character, right? To reveal your character's true character or true nature. So there's a real person inside that character that is right now is masked, right? He doesn't know, and he could unconsciously not know, or he could just be afraid of showing his true nature, his true self. But through these different tests and through the course of your story, you're going to slowly force this character to become more of who this person really is. So when the story starts, your character is living behind that mask, is living behind this pretense, trying to live this comfortable life so that he doesn't have to be challenged. But you're forcing him to be challenged. So now as he goes through your story, what's going to happen is his true identity is going to start to come out. It's going to start to be revealed. And it's your job as the writer, it's the plot's job to provide these opportunities for the character to test himself and have his real identity come out. So with the example of the guy that's in the bank, what's happening here is he is forced to be brave. Maybe he's got a gun to his head. Maybe there's a gun to some, he came into the bank with his wife or his girlfriend, and he has to defend that person, right? So he decides to put his life on the line in order to defend that person. So he, again, this provides an opportunity for him to test that strength and that bravery that he doesn't think he has, but he really does. And remember that up until this point, this identity that you're going to reveal through your story might even be hidden from the character. So the character, in a lot of ways, doesn't even know that this is inside of him, right? Doesn't know that he's capable of certain things. So it's not that it could be that he's just afraid, but it could be also that he doesn't even realize of what he's capable of doing. And so since our job is to create these triggers or these opportunities for your character to test himself, right, and to reveal who he really is, what you need to know as a writer is, well, then why is he the way he is? Why doesn't he believe he is strong enough? Why doesn't he believe he's good looking enough? Why doesn't he believe whatever it is that he believes, right? What is causing him to believe that? Because once we know what has caused that or why he feels this way, we can actually create situations in the story for him to face these kind of untrue beliefs and change them. So if we ask ourselves, okay, why is this guy, frightened? Why does he think that he isn't strong enough or brave enough or whatever? Well, we have to think about creating this character's backstory, right? So make it think, okay, well, maybe this character had a father who was a police officer. And he was going to be just like his dad, right? He's like 13 years old. His father gets killed on the job. Well, he's only 13 years old. He's very impressionable. He's lost his father. At this point, maybe he thinks, okay, well, the world is a dangerous place. I can't trust anyone. And I'm definitely not going to be like my father. I'm not going to be a police officer. I'm not going to do anything dangerous. In fact, I'm just going to be in the background, right? So maybe he kind of rebels. Maybe he just kind of hangs out, does the opposite, hangs out with the rowdy kids. Maybe he just, barely makes it out of high school, gets a job, working at a grocery store or doing, just something that is where he isn't going to experience any danger whatsoever. So wherever he can hide and be, not seen, basically, right? So, okay, so we've created this little backstory now. Now we know why he's afraid, why he thinks he's not brave, why he doesn't even want to be brave, because it's going to get him killed, right? Now when the situation happens at the bank and he doesn't think of himself as a hero, thinks of himself as being, frightened all the time, but he finds that because he wants to protect someone else, doesn't want someone else to get shot, whatever, he just lunges at this guy and takes the gun away or does something, right? Does something where it causes him to be brave. Now he can begin to grow because he did something that was incredibly dangerous. Even though he was frightened, he lived through it, and he can start to see himself differently. He can start to see himself as maybe, the world is dangerous, but maybe I can stand up to the world. Maybe I can protect people. Maybe I am more like my father than I thought, right? So something like that, where you're looking at, why did this character have the belief that he did about himself? How can I challenge that belief? And how can I make the character start to grow and become who he should be, right? By the end of the story. And maybe that's a huge jump. Maybe he wouldn't do this. Maybe you need a before that, right? So maybe this is kind of at the middle of the story. Maybe before that there are smaller little triggers, smaller little things that he can do that shows that, yeah, he really can be brave. He really can step up when he needs to. Maybe there's somebody who's abusing somebody on the street or something, or in his store or something, and he says, hey, cut that out, right? So maybe we start to see, like, yeah, he is kind of heroic, he does have some beliefs, he can stand up, so that by the time that this event happens at the bank, he really can face it. And then, of course, and that's not the ultimate, eventually he's going to do something else later, but we have these smaller opportunities where he can start to question the beliefs that he has about himself, and start to change and start to evolve and start to transform as a character. So when we think of storytelling, we have to think of character first. It's the character, of course, plus the plot. The character will really determine your plot. And it's this transformation and revealing of your character that makes your story. Now, does the character always have to actually be able to actually transform, right? Does the character always have to change by the end? And it's no, because the story is really revealing the character. So the character actually could maybe not change. Then it becomes a different kind of story, right? Rather than a happy story, it becomes more of a tragedy. The character goes through all these tests and all these tests and all these opportunities to change or to reveal who he really is, but for some reason he can't. And if that happens again, that becomes more of a tragedy. And it can be a good story too, because what you're revealing here is that even though he had the power to change, he really never was able to. He was never brave enough to move forward and actually become the person that he should have been. Again, different kind of story, could be just as rewarding. It's just different, but you still have to provide your character with all the opportunities to change and to show why ultimately he fails to become, to evolve and change and become the person that he should have been. But what you have to do in those type of stories is show that the reader at least has to see the potential in that character, even if the character isn't seeing the potential in himself. The reader has to see the path forward, like this is the path you should take, even when the character doesn't take it. It's like, oh, if you would have taken this path, you would have succeeded. You would have done it. You should have fought that, that bad guy in the bank. You should have done it. And if he doesn't, your reader will see that. They might just be disappointed in the character, might not even like the character, but we'll see the, sort of the sadness of it all, the tragedy that this character could have become this great person, and yet he wasn't strong enough to do it for whatever reason. But even in that failure, what have you done? You've revealed character, right? You've shown the reader who this character really is. And even when he fails to become the person he could have been, you've shown the character, you've revealed character. And really that's what storytelling is all about. It's about the character, it's about the character achieving, transforming, and very occasionally not transforming. And again, that's disappointing. Sometimes that happens with a secondary character, but it can happen with the primary character as well. So next time, or now, if you're starting a story, start with your character. You can't have a story, you can't have a plot without your character. So begin with your character. Think about what your character needs, where your character is starting, where your character is going to end. What are the opportunities for this character to transform and to reveal who he really is, and then write your plot points. I hope that this has helped you think about characterization again a little bit better, and if it has, please hit the like and the share button, and please return next week and we will have a nice new topic to talk about. See you then.